Kérem vigyázzanak, az ajtók záródnak.
In Moscow, my husband Vitaly could see things were starting to work out for me in Budapest, and he began considering giving up his job and joining me. But he was cautious about leaping into the void. So in July 2016, he took his entitlement to a month's holiday, plus an extra month of unpaid leave, and came to Budapest for a summer of discovery. It was hot, stinking hot. Rather freak weather, we thought, not having any experience of Hungarian summers when you need to wear a straw hat and seek out the shade. The night Vitaly arrived, we strolled to Szabadság híd, or Liberty Bridge, and looked out with hope over the Danube. Vitaly was crazy about the yellow trams that rattled back and forth across the bridges, joining Buda and Pest. They made him feel instantly at home. Over the weekend, I introduced him to my new friends, and we had some beers. We went to the market at Lehel and the famous Széchenyi thermal baths. But first thing on Monday morning, it was down to business at the immigration office, because we needed to know whether there was a realistic chance of Vitaly getting permission to come and live permanently in Hungary. Melegvolt. It was hot. Stinking hot. As a citizen of a third country, not an EU national, Vitaly had to go to the immigration office on Budapest-6 út. When we saw the huge queue of people spilling out onto the boiling pavement, we of course called it Budapest and nearly called it a day. But luckily, we had a Hungarian friend with us who used all his charm and cunning to get us to the front of the queue. I felt a bit ashamed, but in the monstrous heat, was I going to argue? The officials took our documents and said they would be in touch. While we waited for a letter from immigration, Vitaly and I were free to enjoy our holiday. We discovered the dog-eye baths, less touristy than the pools at Széchenyi. We had numerous walks up Gellert Hill, picking wild plums and nicking leaves from the aromatic purple basil that grew in the flower beds. We drank wine at night on the steps of the basilica and had a day out to Szentendre, where we hoped to catch a bus to a beach we were vaguely aware of, somewhere up the Danube. The bus never came, and we spent the afternoon lolling in the sun at the bus station, but we didn't care. We were happy. The heat was relentless, though, what one of our Hungarian friends called being in the devil's sitting room, and we particularly felt it in the little flat at Prateruzza. When I first moved there, it was very light. True, the view from the window was nothing more exciting than a car park, but the sunlight streamed in. Now, however, a huge new building was going up just opposite, eating the light and creating a lot of dust and noise. Vitaly was sleeping on a mattress on the living room floor. He was being kept awake by the late-night sounds of the Goya, or Stork, pub, and deprived of the chance of a snooze in the morning by the blasting and hammering coming from the building site. In short, it was hell, and it was hot too. We found relief by taking the number 61 tram up into the Buda Hills, where it was slightly cooler. We had picnics in the glades, climbed to the lookout towers, and watched the comings and goings of the children's railway. We also took the train to Siofok, which, while being horribly overcrowded, did give us access to the turquoise waters of Lake Balaton. Still, there was no letter in the mailbox from the immigration authorities. By August, Vitaly was getting irritable. An evening at the open-air opera to see Verdi's Otello did not improve his mood. With perfect timing, the skies opened and a thunderstorm struck at precisely the moment when Othello killed Desdemona. But Vitaly failed to see the funny side. He just hated the soprano. Taking our favourite walk up Gellert Hill didn't help either. Vitaly complained of a rotten smell in the air. The acacias had stopped blooming, and the perfume of Budapest now seemed to be exuding from the rubbish bins. The truth was, Vitaly was worrying about work and his future. We both realised he was going to have to go back to Moscow, and we would be separated again. Thanks to friends at a cultural centre, he'd been offered the chance to play a little concert, but that was not until December, months away. Otherwise, there seemed to be no prospects for him in Budapest, in his profession as a pianist. On the last day of August, we had a sad parting at Liszt Ferenc Airport, and were back to seeing each other on Saturdays via video link. Ironically, the very day after Vitaly left, a letter landed in the mailbox at Prateruzza. It was from the immigration authorities, saying they had granted him a 5-year residence permit. This was unheard of generosity, as usually foreigners got shorter permits on first application. And it was remarkably fast too. Of course, it had been unreasonable of us to think that everything could come together in just one hot and fleeting summer.
This train terminates here. Goodbye.